Would you please welcome Sister Perpetua McArdle? Now, sister, are we all set? I have a job to do, and it's to press this button. You tell me when you want me to do that, and we'll count you down. We're there. Okay. All set. 3, 2, 1.
Good evening. I feel like the Lone Ranger. 6 presenters extolling the greatness of great men. I speak for great women, the Russell sisters. As you came in, you may have noticed a bust of their brother in the foyer, Lord Russell of Cologne. These 3 girls became Sisters of Mercy. Mother Ackman was actually one of the founder members of the Convent of Mercy in Newry in 1855. And but for that, I might not be here this evening because I entered in that convent. There she was joined by Mother Emmanuel, and the other sister, Mother Baptist, entered in Kinsale and went from there to California. These sisters spent the next 40 years of their lives improving the social and economic conditions of the people in the Newry area and in California by helping the needy in all its many forms. As soon as they arrived in Newry, the sisters set to work to alleviate the grim legacy of the famine, hunger, disease, and destitution, and then, by education and practical training, enable the people to help themselves. They became known as the walking nuns, as they visited the overcrowded dwellings of the poor and saw the squalid conditions in which they lived. The Newry Telegraph of 1857 reported that in a period of 3 months, the sisters had helped 931 sick and dying poor. Aware of the appalling conditions, the sisters set aside a section of their convent in Canal Street for destitute women, another section for neglected children, a third for a sewing and lace school. The place became so overcrowded that they had to build a new convent in Catherine Street. Aware that education was the bedrock of social and economic improvement, they began teaching in any available space and later built national and secondary schools, the forerunners of the present-day St. Joseph's Primary and Our Lady's Grammar. The sisters encountered many difficulties in establishing schools in the local towns. In Rostrevor, Mother Ackman had to open a school in a cowhouse because there was no other available building. A contemporary writer tells us that from its size and ventilation, it wasn't good enough even for cows. Yet, this woman who was suffering from TB taught in this stifling atmosphere for a full year until a proper school was built. In Lurgan, some of the residents were not too welcoming and on the 12th of July tried to stone the sisters out of their convent. They didn't succeed. Mother Emmanuel opened day and night schools and training facilities for older students to prepare them for employment. Within a year, 500 pupils were enrolled. In Bestbrook, a tenant farmer offered them his barn, a step up from the cowhouse. The school lasted 1 day due to a dispute between the landlord and tenant, and it took 6 years and a court ruling before a school could be established there. However, meanwhile, the sewing and lace school in Newry was gaining international acclaim. Its products adorned the royalty in Buckingham Palace and the wealthy in America and Australia, and won medals at national and international competitions, and that made Newry known abroad. And it also gave employment to local women for almost 100 years. For over 30 years, Mother Emmanuel was either superior or assistant superior of the sisters. As such, she was the architect of their expanding apostolate, Buildings were refurbished and extended, land purchased, new buildings erected, and when she agreed to take over the running of a new home for destitute women in Kilmurray Street, she advised the sisters to treat the residents as you would your own mother or friend by being kind in every way. Replaced by a new building on the same site, it still cares for the elderly and infirm. Much later, homes were built in Warrenpoint and Bestbrook. Mother Emanuel enlisted the help of her wealthy and influential friends to get positions for girls they had trained for service. One of these was Lady Pyrie, whose husband was chairman of Harland and Wolff. A priest who knew her well said of her, "Mother Emanuel has more sense in her little finger than the Jesuit, the lawyer, and the president." The Jesuit was her brother, a noted preacher and writer. The lawyer was the other brother, the Lord Chief Justice of England. The president was her uncle, head of Maynooth College, and she had more sense in her little finger than the three of them put together. The apostolate of these two sisters has been continued and extended to the present day by over 360 others who, inspired by their example, contributed to the good of society, following in their footsteps as Sisters of Mercy. The third sister, Mother Baptist, went to San Francisco in 1854 with 7 companions at the request of the bishop there. Although only 25 years old, she was appointed the superior. San Francisco was an eye-opener. With the discovery of gold 6 years previously, hordes of fortune seekers from all over the world had flocked there. The population exploded from 300 in 1850 to 44,000 inside 5 years. The incompetent government was unable to cope with the influx. Services of all kinds were either totally inadequate or completely lacking. Hospitals, schools, sanitary facilities, transport. The streets were strewn with rubbish. Many sought shelter in vermin-ridden shacks where disease spread rapidly. Orphans roamed the area scavenging for food in rubbish heaps. Usually, the rats got there first. Prostitution was a lucrative and brutal business. Young girls were shipped from China in crates and sold to the highest bidder. The Know-Nothing clan, vehemently anti-Catholic, printed scurrilous articles about the sisters in the San Francisco Bulletin. This was the city where Mother Baptist was to live and work for the next 44 years of her life. 3 times she saved the city during disastrous epidemics when the government was unable to cope. The first was an outbreak of cholera in 1855. Mother Baptist had nursed cholera victims in Kinsale, and she knew what to do with the disease. For 6 weeks, the sisters gave 24-hour free service in the state hospital, rotating day and night shifts. They saved countless lives. Even the Know-Nothings were in admiration of Mother Baptist, but regretted that such a wonderful lady should be a nun. Another epidemic, black smallpox, hit San Francisco in 1868. Being highly contagious, the mortality rate soared. The government set up a temporary hospital outside the city. It was nicknamed the Pest House. It was grossly overcrowded, with no bathroom facilities. Bits of carpet covered the windows to keep out the cold. Again, Mother Baptist offered the services of the sisters free of charge. One of the sisters who nursed there have left us this account. It is a truly horrible disease. Not one spot from the sole of the foot to the crown of the head is sound. Their throats are so sore that to take a drink almost chokes them, and the stench so terrible that they themselves cry out they cannot endure it. Yet the sisters nursed in the pest house for 10 months, 10 long months, where they were quarantined to avoid spreading infection. The heroic woman who led this group was a native of Newry. For their outstanding work, the city authorities offered all religious sisters free transport in San Francisco in perpetuity, a privilege it is honoured to this day. In 1898, an outbreak of typhoid again called her into action. Hospital facilities, as I've said, were appalling. An ex-patient commented, "If you weren't sick going in, you were certainly sick coming out." Mother Baptist, frustrated with the city's failure to look after its sick, borrowed money, opened her own hospital, appointed doctors of outstanding ability, and because of serious mining injuries, it became a leader in orthopedic surgery, and it also was a training staff for new doctors. It was the first Catholic hospital on the west coast of America, the only one for over 30 years, but catered for all religions and all races. A young islander died there, having escaped from his convict sentence in Australia. James Swansea Winson, a Freemason from Newry, also died there, and it's recorded that Mother Baptist nursed her fellow countryman with the most affectionate and tender care. Care of the sick was simply one aspect of what she did in California. Many other groups needed her attention. She set up a house of mercy for destitute women, a home for orphans, a refuge for prostitutes, and she helped over 400 of them in the course of 10 years. And she also set up an employment bureau which placed about 1,000 people in work each year. During the Depression, she fed 600 to 700 people. She set up schools because she realized that education was extremely important. They became famous throughout the States. There were the feeding grounds also for the future nurses and future teachers and future leaders. A 20th century publication entitled Makers of California listed 90 distinguished citizens. There was one woman's name on that list, and that name was Baptist Russell. And if you go to Sacramento today, to the State Capitol building, you will see a monument to her honor. I ask you, is there a monument to any other Newry citizen at the entrance of any other Capitol building throughout the world? These three women built bridges of opportunity for the needy by bringing health to the sick, sustenance to the poor, hope to the despairing, education to the deprived. Their contribution, both locally and abroad, social and economic welfare of society was enormous. They did Newry proud. Give them your #1 vote.